what are your thoughts on the sort of impl implications of the United States Space Force? What do you know about the Space Force? I'm curious.
Well, I don't know as much as I wish I did. I'll tell you that much right now, because most of what I know I've gotten sort of secondhand from people on like Discord and stuff, people who are involved or maybe involved tangentially
Yeah.
and know things. And of course, there's jokes about that as well that can be made about people who like get on Discord and are talking about like, oh well, we have this fictional setting called the Lunar War. Shout out to those who know. And it's like, oh, so this is what it might actually look like in 20 or 30 years. Cool. Um, but you know, the thing about the Space Force is it's kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, you're to manage the United States government has sort of been almost bamboozled in a manner of speaking, not literally, but has almost been bamboozled into diverting some of its massive defense budget towards space and towards the space industry,
Sure.
and at least towards things that the government toward that the Department of Defense wants to do in space.
Yeah.
Things like,
Miss
planetary defense,
missile defense.
missile defense, satellite research, all these things.
Hmm.
And of course, eventually it'll probably be more complicated and involve things that were just like with the Air Force, we will probably won't see for about 30 years.
Yeah, we'll be old men before we learn what's going on upstairs.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to be like, I don't need to the whole like, oh, this is a need to know. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't need to know anything. I just want to know where the new Star Trek comes out. That's all
Yeah.
I care about.
So the flip side to the Space Force is they get all of the attention. The NASA, which even though NASA has been around since the late 50s and has done all these amazing things for space exploration and discovery in space and human presence in space and everything, the Space Force is now the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
And because they're the new kid on the block, it is also challenging China and Russia and other American adversaries in space. They get all the toys.
Yeah.
So all of the new launch capabilities, all the new launch contracts are sort of being shoveled into the mouth of the Space Force money chute. Whereas NASA's kind of like holding out its hat on the corner like this skinny street urchin from a Dickens novel saying, hey, can we have an extra $500,000 to send a satellite to look at like the weather, please?
No.
Hello? Yeah. So,
Seems pretty woke to me.
yeah, I mean, it's sad.
Now, I
It's
was always curious because I know you're a NASA kid,
mhm.
and I've always been a DoD guy, and I'm like, I wonder what NASA thinks of the Space Force. And if I'm NASA, I'm gonna be a little shitty about it.
It's funny because when I was there, they never talked about it. But
Interesting.
that's honestly probably kind of playing into your point because it's probably like we just don't talk about them. Like we
Yeah,
don't talk about what's the song from that Disney movie? We don't talk about such and so about so and so. I can't remember what the name is.
I couldn't tell you.
From Encanto.
Okay, I never saw
Yeah,
Encanto.
me either.
That's all right.
We're old people. We're old men.
We're
So
old men. We're the old men nowadays.
yeah.
No, I do like. I hope that in the future I could see. I mean, I'm sure NASA and the Space Force work hand in hand now. They're both governmental space agencies. We
Hmm.
have two now. That's pretty cool. And it makes sense if our near peer adversaries are militarizing space and everyone's just saying, well, fuck the START Treaty, right? Like, why would we? I think the START Treaty is about nuclear disarmament.
Yeah.
Uh,
You're thinking of the moon treaty, the outer
yes.
space treaty.
Yes, the one where we're like, oh, we're not going to militarize space. I think we've all moved past that.
Yeah.
Like,
Unfortunately.
yeah,
And that's the thing is, it's there's a point that could be made of saying, well, we're sort of doing the same thing, but that's the thing. It's the same argument that could be made with nukes.
yeah,
If one side is doing it, everyone's going to be doing it because the side that tries to take the moral high ground and say, well, we're going to set a good example, they're the ones who get left behind.
yeah.
And the sort of people who run militaries and governments don't want to be left behind ever.
And it's not even left behind. I mean, yes, but also it's more like if we don't do this, the gun will be pointed at us, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we can get ahead of them.
Point is that the people who are running the Space Force and who are signing its checks on Capitol Hill, they do not want China, for example, China the main
Yeah.
being the main example, obviously nowadays, to be the predominant power in space because then they leave us behind, and it's the same. It's basically a repeat of it. There's so much literature and discussion discourse nowadays about how, oh, it's basically a new space race, a new Cold War in space, and that's not far off from the truth
Yeah.
because in the 1960s we were trying to race the Russians to the moon because whoever got there first showed that their missile capabilities were the best.
Well,
Nowadays, we're trying to race to like control, low Earth orbit and the moon and eventually Mars, and whoever does that will show they have the best technology.
so let me ask you this. I mean, I have the Chinese even made it to the moon? Like a drone, right?
Yeah, they've put rovers up there, but we haven't even put rovers. Like we're
Yeah.
actually we're trying to put rovers now, but I mean that's the thing. The thing is about follow anyone who follows on can in theory move a lot faster
Yeah.
because they don't have to make the same mistakes. Like
Yeah.
the Chinese are moving supposedly at least according to those who are again, sort of rattling the saber for better or worse, they are moving a lot faster because they don't have to make the same mistakes to figure out where the goalposts are. They basically
Yeah.
just have to sort of say, hey, here's how you build a rocket, here's how you launch it, here's how you go from Earth orbit to the lunar orbit, here's how you land on the surface. They won't have people back on the surface of the moon by around the same time that we're looking to put people back on the surface of the moon. And it's kind of a question of who's going to get there first at this point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're putting rovers on the moon, but also we have like a fleet of helicopters on Mars, right?
Just one, and it's broken.
I mean, still pretty cool.
Yeah, cool.
I
Believe me, I'm not. I'm.
I don't even have a helicopter on Earth. I think having an intergalactic or interplanetary helicopter fleet pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. See, when it comes right down to it, at the end of the day, I'm not going to get too bent out of shape over other countries doing cool things in space because to me, it's humanity doing cool things in space.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably a little more open to that than some
Yeah.
people are. But that's the thing is if a space agency does something, I don't care because to me it's humans making that achievement. It's not necessarily one nation or another making that achievement. It's that is the height of human conceit to say, well, my nation got to the moon first, so we're clearly better. So this nation has only existed for 200 years out of 4.5 billion. You know, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things that some imaginary lines drawn on a map that will be totally different in a billion years. That's just that's my opinion. Again, people can fault me for that, but when we're talking about something on the scale of exploring space that is so vast and so ancient and has so long left to go, literally quadrillions of years before the stars even start to wink out. It really doesn't matter who put a flag on the moon first. I'm just glad to see that someone did. That someone got up there and started that route.
So you're saying in the long arc of history, assuming we become a multiplanetary species and we don't just like, you know,
Vaporize ourselves.
or I mean also too like the birth rates are crashing. So I'm like, well, maybe we'll all just like go quietly into the night. Who knows? But um assuming that there's a long arc of history, there's a multiplanetary species, we become closer to something like Isaac Asimov's foundational empire, where it's a 12,000 year empire spanning the entire arm of the galaxy.
Mhm.
It's not going to matter which one of the pre-interstellar nations of Earth put a flag on there first. It just matters that someone did. I like the way you think.
Well, there's a famous quote. It might even be from Asimov. If it's not from Asimov, then it's from Arthur C. Clarke, who's obviously another famous science fiction writer from one of the most famous science fiction writers from back in the day, who said something like, "Unless we destroy ourselves, the history of human civilization will probably be more about humanity in space than
Yeah.
it will be about humanity on Earth." Because we've been on Earth for human civilization as we know it has existed for about 12,000 years.
Yeah.
If we can become a multiplanetary species, whether it's just in this solar system or across multiple solar systems, multiple star systems, especially, we can in theory last for hundreds of thousands of years. So that 12,000 years sort of re- ref, confined to one planet will seem like a footnote at the start of our history. It'll seem like
Yeah.
sort of a almost a quaint footnote, I would
Yeah.
think. And I'm not, there's people. There's another thing that we could talk about. There's lots of people. There's a big discourse going on space Twitter right now between space enthusiasts and degrowthers.
Is it called Spitter?
Spitter. Yes, I told
Nice.
you that. Space Twitter, they call themselves Spitter.
Nice.
Um, but
Degrowthers. What's it?
and again, I don't want to. Again, it'd be easy to just sort of talk down on them. But there's folks who believe, for example, there's a quote I saw. There's quotes I saw or some discourse I saw that was screenshotted from Reddit where people were saying they would rather sabotage the rockets people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are building than see humanity die on Earth together than see the rich escape from Earth and start over on some new planet just because they can. And it's like, are you that petty that you're going to wish wish extinction on your own species? And again, I have no love for these rich a-holes,
Sure.
none. But the pendulums has to swing pretty far to go from, oh well, maybe we should, you know, we should colonize the galaxy and let the rich people rule everything like a fiefdom,
Yeah.
to the opposite side of the spectrum, which is, oh, I want humans to be a single planetary species for our entire existence, just so the rich people don't win.
Yeah.
Just so that, or because, oh, humans are the problem. We shouldn't spread to other planets. It's like, how cynical are you? The,
Cynical.
the sort of people who watch Agent Smith's like speech at the end of at the climax of the Matrix and like sort of like get a hard on. It's like, oh, humans are a cancer. Yeah, say it again, Smith. It's like, come on, really? Are we this hateful of our own kind because of some bad apples who have done a lot of damage, honestly? But again, you look at some of the beautiful things that humans have done, look at all the potential we have. You shouldn't discount all of that just because some people are so greedy that they want to ruin the planet and make themselves richer. Because the sad thing is that, yes, a lot of the same people who are ruining the planet to make themselves richer are the same people who are investing in making us get off planet. But again, sometimes you gotta kind of have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, those people sound like, I mean, one, they sound very lost and broken. And I listen to something like that and I think, what would I have to be going through to outwardly proclaim not only sabotaging SpaceX or whatever, but also the downfall of society, um all to get back at this Bond villain that I've created in my head. Now, Bezos, Musk, these guys, they're Bond villains, but like real Bond villains, right? Not like the twirling, in these people's heads, they're like these mustachioed villain types. And like we've talked about this before, where people are so desperate for meaning and they're so longing for purpose. And if you go to the right parts online, well, hey, you could join our club, and these are our enemies, and these are the big villains, and this is the final boss, and you could join our team, and we're gonna fight them together, and we're gonna tweet all the bad things, and you can say all the right things, and you'll be a part of the club, and you'll be in the resistance. It'll be great.
Special hat.
And a special hat, you know. And sometimes that hat is red, and sometimes it's blue, and sometimes there's horns, and sometimes there's black hoods with scarves. And but it's from political radicalization in general comes from people that are broken, who are desperate, who have nothing, and are desperate for someone to say you belong, and that's the reason why things are bad.
Mhm.
To me, I hear someone who has nothing going on in their lives,
Yeah, it's
who
one.
sees nothing going on in their heart and says, "Oh, it's Musk's fault," right?
Yeah, it's a 1-2 punch. It's not just my life sucks. It's my life sucks because someone else is doing it to me.
And
And
then
when you give them that someone to target, they then have an outlet for their rage. And it can be, again, it can be anyone. It's, people, radicals on one side hate the rich, radicals on the other side may hate the rich, but they may also hate the poor
Yeah.
and, racial minorities.
Yeah.
You know,
And I won't go into specific details, but I remember when I was lost. I remember when I was broken, when I was without meaning or purpose, and I had nothing. And I never went to a meeting, but I saw some YouTube videos, and some people said, "Oh, you fit this criteria? Well, it's their fault, and they took it from you. So we're gonna get after them, and they're the bad guys, and you join our team, right?" When I speak of this, I speak from my own very limited experience, right? But I could extrapolate that because I was so full of like resentment and self-hatred. And I had rock bottom isn't really a place so much as an empty, endless, cavernous void of resentment.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think the thing about this about the thing about space exploration, and yes, even space settlement, which can be kind of a dirty word for some people because it conjures up images of like settlers in the West Bank,
Sure,
or like historical colonialism, historical imperialism, whatever. Yes, there is a sordid history of colonialism on Earth.
sure,
No one is discounting that. But the idea of putting outposts on Mars that we can do research there, or maybe like establishing like orbital like platform orbital like ring cities in the asteroid belt, or on the or like a way station on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, so that we can then explore and settle the outer solar system. Why should that be seen as an evil? I mean, even if there is microbial life living out there, even if there is microbial life living out there, we should have the chance to go out there and find it and and explore it and get to see it up close. It's not something we shouldn't resign ourselves to live on one planet for the entirety of our history just because humanity has sort of a dark history.
well, here's why they're saying these things because they don't think they're ever going to see it themselves.
Mhm.
They think, oh, that's not for me. They think I'm not good enough to do these things. And progressive ideology, progressive thought, as a general blanket statement, gives benefit of the doubt to those without power, right? They're looking out for the little guy ostensibly,
Mhm.
in theory, in a textbook. But that ideology taken to its sort of resentful, malevolent turn is anyone with power is automatically evil, and I have none. So everyone is evil. Everyone with more power than me is evil, right? And the right is the same way too, right? Except everyone with less power than me is like nothing. It's a weird like hierarchy they have going. Because I remember being nothing and hearing the thing, or I remember having no power and hearing what all my poor conservative friends are saying.
No, I think we're on a good tangent here. I mean, because the thing is, we can talk about all the bad, but there's also so much good.
Yeah,
Because you look at the potential the human race has. You
yeah.
look at the, it sounds cliched to repeat it, and I have in my writing, for example, you've probably seen this sort of phrase like in my writing before, that it took 12,000 years for humanity to go from the East African Rift Valley to Kitty Hawk. And then from there, it only took 66 years to go from Kitty Hawk, the first flight, to the Sea of Tranquility. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big achievement. And again, I have friends who would caution me against the idea of linear progression narratives, and that's a good point. But at the same time, isn't it amazing that we're able to do things like this, that we're able to find a vaccine for COVID in like a year?
Yeah.
People want to argue about that still, about how, oh, it's this and that. Bullshit.
I I I
That's
I
an achievement worthy of celebration.
I mean, I remember when the vaccine came, when I heard news of the vaccine, I broke down into tears. But again, it was pre-vaccine pandemic, so that was kind of just a Thursday for me. But on that note, I think we'll end there. And for the Blanket Fortress of Solitude, I am Derwin,
I'm Nick.
and we will see you next Monday morning at 0700.